Good morning. Good morning. What's going on, everybody? What is going on? Happy Tuesday here. Tuesday, August 11th. I know. No show yesterday. 8:30 today. What's happening here? All right, I had a guest that I'm trying to kind of accommodate the schedule around. Got a great guest today, so that's why we went a half hour later. Why I didn't do a show yesterday. Mostly because there isn't shit to talk about that's different. I would say that's probably has a lot to do with it. As I mentioned, as we get into August, obviously we're going to be doing less shows. I want to do these because there's stuff to talk about. I don't want to talk about nothing. Today, actually, a packed day. So my plan is to obviously do 1 full hour. So we'll go till 9:30. Looking forward to doing the show with everybody. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you guys being a part of the show. Cheers to you, whatever type of coffee that you're drinking this morning. Maybe it's tea, whatever it is that you got going on. I mentioned this place. Such good coffee. Mountain Coffee up in Lake Arrowhead. Phenomenal coffee. All right, let me give everyone a quick rundown. What the hell we got going on for the show today? Thank you very much for being here. Hopefully everybody's having a good Tuesday. Timing was just good. I actually didn't know this. I did a show last night with Trevor Lane. And I had heard this week that we'll probably get opening week and Christmas games. But the fact that we already got them is great. So we can kind of go through it. Wow, power matchup coming up on Christmas. Damn, does the NBA. Is the NBA not a soap opera? I mean, it's Days of Our Lives. It's Guiding Light. I don't know. I'm trying to think of, do soap operas still exist? It really is a soap opera. They, I think, got it right. As far as Christmas, they got right. I don't think they got opening night right, at least from a Laker perspective, or opening week right from a Laker perspective. We'll go through some of those games. Our guest today, Anthony Slater. Phenomenal job for ESPN. Known him for a little bit. He was with The Athletic for a number of years. He used to always come on my radio show. Used to always come on the pregame show every time the Lakers were playing the Golden State Warriors. So plan is to have him, let's see. Yeah, plan is to have him at 8:45. So in about 10 minutes or so, we'll get Anthony Slater on the show. Latest on Jonathan Kuminga. The saga continues with Jonathan Kuminga. At least we'll be able to ask Anthony Slater about it. He's done a really good job kind of covering. There's two things that I want to do with him because I think it's going to be great. Number one, he's covered the Golden State Warriors for a number of years. So he's going to know Jonathan Kuminga through and through, on the court, off the court, as in just from a, obviously a reporter standpoint. So I really want to get his perspective on Jonathan Kuminga. And then, there was kind of a famous clip that was going around for a while that Anthony Slater had about that the Lakers keep calling on Jonathan Kuminga. So we'll find out if there's anything new here to talk about and to discuss. I thought there was a really, interesting clip yesterday. I hopped on with Trevor Lane on Lakers Nation. Always good to do a show with Trevor. Always good to go on Lakers Nation as well. I mean, obviously that channel's it's a beast. So to try to get people from there to come check out this channel here, obviously that's good for biz. As we continue to try to grow the channel. We played a clip, Zach Lowe, on his podcast, basically saying that the Lakers are trapped in that Walker Kessler deal. Trapped the Lakers. Would love to kind of have a discussion on that. So we'll play that clip and we'll give our thoughts and opinion on that. Kind of interesting energy around the Lakers, to be honest. I think the energy from most people, not necessarily fans. I think most Laker fans are refreshed that they're going to see something completely different next season. But I think most, from a national perspective, not very high on the Lakers. Let's put it that way. Part of the conversation that also came up yesterday was, who's got the most pressure on the Lakers right now on that Zach Lowe podcast. It was a little bit of a, hey, is it Walker Kessler? Is it Austin Reaves? Is it Luka? Is it JJ? Is it Rob Pelinka? So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we got a ton of NBA stories. So there's a lot of things to hit on from an NBA perspective today that we'll spend some time on as well. Klay Thompson, is he kind of indicating that he wants to be a Laker? LeBron sends out something on Instagram that people will look at and say, is he talking about the Lakers? I don't know. Guys, the whole league is a soap opera. I mean, I don't even know why we play basketball anymore. Basketball honestly gets in the way of the soap opera. I think that part is safe to say. All right, so that's going to be our rundown. That's what we got going on for the show today. Let me look at a couple of the comments here, and then we'll get the show started. So let's see what people got to say. Let's see what we got. Why don't we trade Bronny? I think they're going to keep Bronny. I really do. And I had said this even, before. If they see some value in him and they think that he can provide what they need, remember what the Lakers did all summer. They went younger. They went more athletic, and he kind of fits that. He definitely fits that mold there. Okay, let's get a couple more in here. Lakers versus Warriors yet again. Why can't we schedule? I'll get into it. Don't worry. I'm with you on that one. The first thing I said this morning, I'm like, really? Again? Kuminga revenge game. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they already kind of see the writing on the wall here, and there's a revenge game coming up. Trapped because Rob can't land a starting wing. Rather overpay with trade assets on Kessler than a wing. Definitely a topic that we're going to get into. Literally, who gives a damn about Kuminga? I gotta be honest with you. Apparently, a lot of people, because there's been a lot of juice around Jonathan Kuminga here since we got into the offseason. All right, one more. Lakers fan told me they was getting OKC opening day. Laughing my ass off. All right, let's get the show started. Thank you again for being here. Do me a favor. Would love to try to close in on 40,000 subscribers to this channel. We're, I think, getting closer to about 37,000 right now. It's free. You don't have to do anything. Just subscribe to the channel. Like and share if there's anybody that you think would like the content of the channel as well. I mean, for those who know, obviously was on radio for a number of years, independent now for almost 2 years, and loving every second of this channel. So if you enjoy the channel, all I ask is you subscribe to it. We greatly appreciate that. And I'll continue to try to put up good NBA Lakers content and try to bring the best guests that I can on the channel as well. All right, let's get things started here. Eric, why don't you pop up this schedule? So opening week, I think Thursday, the rest of the schedule is going to come out. And I am planning on doing a show coming up on Thursday. Let me just make sure I get this here. I am planning on doing a show on Thursday, so just a heads up there. So we will be around. Let's see. All right, here's what we got here. So here, it at least just kind of gives you an idea of what we got for opening week, and then what we have for nationally televised games as well, or for Christmas as well. So here's opening week first. Let's do opening week. Opening week, the Celtics and the Pistons. Okay, good matchup. That's going to be the first game of the NBA season. All right, I don't hate it. I don't love it either. Sixers and the Knicks. Badass, phenomenal. I think that's going to be fantastic. Really, really looking forward to that game. Absolutely looking forward to that game. LeBron now a part of this one I think was easier to predict. It was definitely easier to predict that was going to happen in regards to the NBA schedule. I think most people thought the Sixers are obviously going to be there on opening night. I thought the better move was to have them against the New York Knicks. Is that the game at the Madison Square Garden? Is that in New York? Yeah. Oh, it has to be. They got to get their rings. You can't beat that. That's must-watch TV. That's Jaylen Brown. That's Joel Embiid. That's LeBron. That's Tyrese Maxey. Watching the New York Knicks at the Madison Square Garden get their rings. Phenomenal. That one is great. And then OKC San Antonio. I think get ready for this. Let me tell everybody here. Over the next handful of years, there's going to be a lot of San Antonio Spurs and the Oklahoma City Thunder on these premier matchups in these premier games. So phenomenal stuff on opening night. Again, the Boston-Detroit thing, all right, little appetizer, but the real matchups are going to come after that. That's opening night of the NBA on Tuesday, October 20th. Must-watch TV there. Lakers are not a part of opening night. Okay. The next day, which will include the Lakers, Minnesota, Miami. Not really sure if I get the angle, but okay, I'll watch it. You got LaMelo Ball. You got Giannis Antetokounmpo on the other side. All good. We'll watch that matchup. And then the second game of the back-to-back on that night, on the second night, is the Warriors and the Los Angeles Lakers. Can I be honest with everybody? A complete fail in this one. I don't know what you guys want me to tell you. I'm so sick of watching the Golden State Warriors. I don't know somebody want to tell me what the angle is here? Is it just Steph and Luka? Is that what it is? But to me, there's no connection here between these two teams. I mean, I'd have taken, if it was Minnesota on opening night, I think would have been more exciting. If it would have been Denver on opening night, all right, I would have said, I kind of seen this script before, but much more, I think, updated than the Golden State Warriors. Not really sure why the Golden State Warriors on opening night. The world's not going to end, but I think it's safe to say that I don't really think that does anything for me. The rest of, Cavs and Sixers, awesome. Makes a lot of sense. Denver, OKC, fun matchup. New York and Boston, phenomenal there. Rockets because of KD. I'd have taken a Rockets matchup. To me, the worst game of all of these on opening night is I don't understand the Warriors and the Lakers angle. I just don't think the Warriors are that interesting anymore. And I think there's so many more interesting teams in the Western Conference that you could have matched up with the Lakers. Hell, if you would have told me it was the Jazz and the Lakers, I probably would have had more interest than the Golden State Warriors. That's your opening week of the NBA. The best matchups here, and I hate to say this because, the man still is freaking holding a lot of power. Let's be honest here. A couple of the biggest games here, it's involving LeBron still. LeBron and the Knicks with the Sixers. LeBron and the Cavs with the Sixers. Obviously, the Jaylen Brown and actually, is there one of these here? No, there isn't a Boston, but there's a Celtics and the Knicks there. Obviously, the Spurs and the Thunder from a basketball perspective, probably the best matchup that you can have here on the opening week. So that's opening week. Let's flip the script real quick. Let's go to the Christmas games. Let me try to get through some of these, and then we'll get Anthony Slater, who's going to join us as well. So here's Christmas games. Christmas Day, I actually feel like they hit better on these. A little bit more unique matchups. They did still slip in a Golden State Warrior game. I get it. It's Steph Curry, so I understand that. But let me go through these here real quick. The Spurs and the Knicks. Listen, that's the NBA Finals. The New York Knicks should be, a part of all of this, of course, no question about it. Not just the market, but the fact that they're the defending champs. Let the San Antonio Spurs have to go back to New York City to go face them. And I kind of like that this is the early game, just because I think it will get people watching from the get-go. Miami and Giannis Antetokounmpo go to the Boston Celtics. We obviously know that Boston was in the running for Giannis. They didn't end up getting him. So that's your second game. And then, come on. You got Philly and LeBron coming to L.A. to take on the Los Angeles Lakers. That, my friends, is must-watch TV. And it's a phenomenal matchup, and it's the right matchup. When I was doing the show with Trevor yesterday, I don't know why I thought this, but in my head, I'm like, they're going to keep it Eastern Conference teams versus East, Western Conference teams versus the West. I mean, there have been plenty of examples of them mixing, obviously the East and the West on Christmas games. So I didn't do a good enough job of my prediction, but a lot of the chat last night was like, yeah, Lakers-Sixers should be the Christmas game. And not only were they right, I think this is the right matchup. And I think that's going to be exciting. And here's LeBron, like it or not, flexing his freaking muscle again around the NBA and around the league. OKC and the Minnesota Timberwolves, love it. I think that's going to be a fun matchup. And then Denver and the Golden State Warriors to close it out in the late game. I think that's 7:30 out here on the West Coast. So we got the games. We got the nationally televised games in the first week. You got the Christmas Day games. And the NBA obviously has done a phenomenal job of kind of sprinkling everything in. Adam Silver was going to hallucinate when LeBron hadn't made a decision because he wanted to get the schedule out. He didn't wait for Jonathan Kuminga. So shockingly here, he didn't wait for Jonathan Kuminga. But this is the schedule right now for for opening week and for Christmas Day. And I think of all these games, that Lakers-Sixers matchup on Christmas Day is phenomenal. It's going to be badass, and I think a lot of people are going to look forward to it. All right, let me look at some of the comments here. Let's see what some of the people are saying in regards to some of the matchups, and we'll go from there. So let's see what we got here. Good show with you and Trevor. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for that. All right, let me get, let's see what we got here. Steve, nice enough to throw in a super here. How much would the Lakers ceiling raise by adding Kuminga? Thanks again for the great content, Steve. I appreciate the super here. How much would it change? Look, this is going to be a great conversation that we could have with Anthony here. We're going to get him on here in the show in just a second. I would tell you this. I do think that it feels like there's such a trickle effect of having, first off, they need a starting power forward. They need Jonathan Kuminga. And if it's not Jonathan Kuminga, they need somebody in that spot. And I do think there's going to be a trickle-down effect of how the rest of the roster looks, maybe a more natural starting lineup. I do think a much higher ceiling for the Lakers if they not just had Jonathan Kuminga, but also willing to play a specific role for the Lake Show as well and kind of understanding how the team is going to be ran and operated. So I do think he would – I don't want to put too much pressure on one guy, but I think it is a significant difference. Does it mean they're going to go make a run to the NBA Finals? No. But I do think there would be definitely a trickle-down effect that comes with the Jonathan Kuminga effect. I'll come back to this comment in just a second, but I appreciate you sending over that super. All right, let's get Anthony Slater. Let's get our guest on for the show. Covers the NBA. He's done a phenomenal job for ESPN, obviously previously with The Athletic. Good morning, sir.
What's up? Can you hear me?
I got you, brother.
Great.
I look at you guys. It's outdoor. I mean, everything.
So I'm actually indoor. They used to make fun of me, but I used to use this background. I would actually go outside for NBA Today or, some of my earlier ESPN hits, and it became a thing. Windhorse had like a rant. It was actually about your last topic, Jonathan Kuminga, when it was, month 4 of, the Jonathan Kuminga Warriors standoff or whatever it was. Windhorse said something about Slater's been out there in his backyard for 4 years talking about this subject or something like that. But they finally installed, I have a home studio where it's can be a little bit more of a variety, but yeah, you're seeing kind of the condensed version.
I like it.
I'm not fully outside.
I like it. How's the summer going?
Good. It dragged a little, right? The LeBron stuff took over all of July, and my place, as you can imagine, was pretty interested in that. But it feels like this next month and a half, especially now that NFL camps have started. We're to the point of the calendar where ooh, this is the Christmas Day slate, and it's like major news. It's like okay.
We're at that point. Yeah, no, we're at that point, which is pretty typical, right? Get to this stage. The NBA has done, I'll give the NBA credit in this. They have found a way to stretch as long as they can. There's only so much you can stretch. And of course, when you start talking college football and NFL, the NBA is obviously going to take a back seat for a little bit here. And then, obviously we'll get closer to training camp starting. I'll start off with this and just kind of get your thoughts. The offseason, can you give me – I know there's the obvious ones of LeBron and, goes to Philly. One or two moves that, kind of caught your eye, and it could be Laker-centric. It could be anywhere that you want to go. But when the dust settles, was there a move that you thought maybe didn't get as much of the chatter that you feel like it deserved?
Just the Jaylen Brown one was the shock of the summer, obviously, and that dominoes into LeBron. That can be in its own separate category. I would say, if it's Laker related, like Walker Kessler, the price tag for that and what appears to be somewhat of a desperate all-in move on the Luka era to a degree. I mean, all-in's probably a little strong. They have some maneuverability, but they tried to hit really fast forward on the core post LeBron. So how that all relates was probably the most interesting aspects of the summer. I mean, how about Ja Morant going to Portland and nobody even seems to care? Not care, but it's just not.
I forgot.
Yeah, I know exactly. Portland's really interesting because it's you have really maybe one of the feel-good stories of this on-court season last year was the Blazers surprising and Denny Avdia's rise and some of their young guys, coming up. They make the playoffs. They took a game off the Spurs. There was even a moment in that Spurs series after Wemby got the concussion where I was maybe. And you have all that, and then now you're coming back with the ownership situation looming over, obviously like the relocation aspect of it, but also like the coaching hire, right? And how like kind of awkward that was, the way Splitter kind of got bumped out, the cheap nature of Mike Nori's contract. And at the same time, you're bringing back what was a plucky kind of upstart young team, and suddenly you're just taking their starting backcourt away and saying you are now starting Ja Morant and Damian Lillard. Franchise legend Damian Lillard played 0 minutes for you last year. Ja Morant, that's going to be your starting backcourt. We'll see how it works, but like that just team in general, I think entering the season with, I assume, like just a weird stuff going on in between City and this strange new ownership group. I feel like that's kind of a situation to watch, even though I feel like we don't talk about the Blazers that much.
No, I think it's a great observation. I mean, such a kind of, if you really look at it, one of the staples of the NBA as far as a franchise goes. And, I remember growing up and the Blazers were, that was one of the squads, one of the teams. And if you wanted to win a championship in that era with Shaq and Kobe, it's like the Blazers and Lakers had some phenomenal runs. And I mean, even to conceive, I mean, to be completely honest, I mean, I think to even think of the Blazers leaving Portland, how shitty would that be? Like
especially after Seattle, right?
I was just gonna but I was just gonna say, I'm like the Sonics one is still one, and I'm originally from San Diego, and I know, I mean, the Chargers leaving San Diego, devastating. And that's what, for some of these markets where you feel like, no, that is part of the fabric of who they are, to even have that conversation. I think it's one of the worst things about sports is like just plucking away. And it doesn't even matter what the history is. It's like, yeah, we'll just pluck it away and we'll go somewhere else. That to me is my least favorite part of sports.
Yeah, if this relationship between Dundon, the new owner, who clearly has no ties or loyalty really to Portland, and the city and the government, and like I'm not as versed as I probably need to be and should be if I like end up having to do stories on it, which I'm out here, I may have to. I probably need to get more versed on like the intricacies of their arguments up there. But if that gets more toxic, that relationship, like that's going to become a major story in the league, I think, over the next like year or two, if it really feels like the Blazers could be relocated. And we'll see if it gets to that point. Maybe, one of the sides caves to a degree and it happens. But regardless, that's, and again, like they're not an uninteresting team either. That's especially bringing Lillard back, and Ja is a personality. So,
you mentioned something on the Kessler front, and I've heard this a little bit later in the show. We'll play something from Zach Lowe on his podcast talking about how he feels like the Lakers are, if you want to call it, trapped, I think was the word he used, on making that Walker Kessler deal. What is your opinion on that move specifically? Because I do feel like most people are saying the Lakers gave up a lot to get Walker Kessler. However, I think there's also this, I don't really know what plan B was going to be for them, that they almost had to do it. What's your thoughts on how the Lakers ended up with Walker Kessler and how you think he'll fit with the Lakers?
Well, to the bigger picture question, I'll almost like relate it to the Warriors summer I've covered, where, at a time you can feel when franchises feel cornered into a move at times by the situations with their superstar. Maybe a superstar is not demanding, but their timeline demands it, their arc demands it, their extension eligibility, whatever. The Warriors could have been cornered into an Anthony Davis move this summer, right? It's just like, hey, you've got to make some changes. You have to get Steph Curry help. You have to somehow figure out a way to lure LeBron James. You have to throw anything you have at a Davis type or a Jaylen Brown type to try to bring Anthony Davis in. They took the approach that, has not gone over particularly well locally, which is like, we will not be forced into a move we don't like. We will not overpay. We will stay patient. I think Steve Kerr used like the term, sometimes the best move is a non-move, and you have to just wait and then pounce when it's the right moment. Wasn't the right moment. Again, we can hear arguments on both sides. The Warriors are going to enter the season really with kind of a bland narrative around them because they just were inactive to a degree, where, to your point, like, what it was a plan B for the Lakers, just like, hey, sorry, Jazz, we're not going to pay that price for Walker Kessler. But then you got to say, hey, sorry, Luka, your starting center is like DeAndre Ayton still, or
maybe Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, sure. Like lower tier, lower price tag. You still have your ammo, your draft picks. You haven't committed that type of money to Kessler, who could play up to that contract, but like I think he's very much an unknown, particularly an injury unknown. But even when he's on the court, like you're paying for, like I heard somebody call him like kind of like a stretch 5, and you look, it's like sure he hit a few threes, but it's like that's not a proven high volume, 3-point shooter. Sure, if he becomes that, explodes into an all-star center who protects the rim, which is obviously very important with the way this team is constructed, but also hits the 3. I mean, that's perfect next to Luka. But I don't. Clearly, the Lakers are on like a different type of timeline, and like they are it feels like Rob Pelinka. I'm not on the inside of the Lakers situation, so it's not like I'm reporting this, but it felt like kind of a summer where a guy might be GMing for his future in some ways, and kind of pushing all the chips in because it feels a little backed into to that type of situation. And then
great point.
I get it. Like Luka's not necessarily getting any younger. Like he's mid prime. He's experienced. He's one of the young guys that's experienced winning. He's been in the finals. Like I don't think he's ready for a slow build, right? I don't think he's ready for like, oh yeah, I understand. Couldn't cash in the 2 first-round picks. The Kessler price was too much. Like let's just kind of have a gap year, whatever you want to call it. He wants to be to a degree all in, and obviously. His future contract extension, all that will matter within it. So I kind of get why it happened, but also like, I'm not sure I love that Kessler was the guy for that. I wonder if Duren could have been got for that price. Probably not. And I'm not even sure that would be necessarily a better fit, but it's an interesting conversation because I know they met with him.
Well, I think what's interesting there is what you said about the Pelinka piece of it, right? And listen, it's impossible to not think you got new ownership that just came in. I think new ownership who does have deep pockets, that this is going to be one of their leverage plays. One of their leverage plays is we can go spend as much as we want in the front office. We go spend as much as we want in our scouting department and analytics. And if there's one advantage deep pockets can have in the NBA, it's not baseball. You can't just go buy any player that you want, but you can go get a good front office. How doesn't Rob Pelinka feel some pressure of, how much time am I going to have here? I got to go make that happen. That's interesting. There is the pressure of not just him, but there's the pressure of, like you mentioned, Luka Dončić. It was widely reported. It might have been Dave McMenamin that was like, yeah, it's supposed to be your 2026 is supposed to kind of, that's the pitch they gave Luka Dončić was this is when we'll be able to be active.
And included within that Dave report was A-list center, right? Mm-hmm. And like, I'm not sure I would consider Kessler A-list, but clearly it was like the most A-list they could get, and he can be pitched in a way of like, look at the upside, and maybe they're correct. Like maybe Walker Kessler over the course of this deal makes 2 all-star games, but trapped is maybe too strong of a term, but also like I get that idea that like the ammo is low at this point, and a lot of the contracts now you wonder. Let's say they take some of these contracts back on the market next summer or whatever. Like how many of them are going to be positive value besides Luka? Like Reaves is now a pretty steep price tag. Kessler, I'm not sure how much that could recoup. Mamusveli, like but look, if they're right, they're right. That's a great thing about sports. Like if this concoction of players fits, and I have seen Luka take kind of curious rosters that fit him maybe better than they like, their sum is better than the parts, right? Basically, and get to the finals. Or I saw him really speed up his timeline really early. I'm talking 2022 playoffs when they were, I think, the 4 seed, and they upset the Suns, who were the 1 seed, right? That great Suns team. The Warriors took them down in the West Finals, but that was still like, man, Luka's already here, and the roster didn't seem at the time, or even entering the playoffs when they were the 4 seed that year, like a roster that could do that. I've seen him beat the 1-seeded Thunder team in the second round, the year they went to the finals, which was a surprise. So he can surprise if he has the right supporting cast.
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of, just let's make sure Luka's probably good with some of these additions, and how much of this is going to be Luka. The keys are yours. We got a couple of the pieces that you felt like you can work with. And you're right. I mean, Luka's in a timeline. Listen, he's further away from an NBA championship, getting to the NBA finals, than he's been in a while. And what I mean by that is he got that taste in Dallas as far as the Western Conference Finals, then the NBA Finals. And really since then, since he got to the NBA Finals, he's not getting closer. It feels like he's going the other way. And now how much of this is going to be obviously on his back and his shoulders? I think there is going to be, you're right, there's risk in all of this, but I think there is a little bit of, well, Luka can get the best out of some of these players that another, obviously point guard can't. So we'll see what happens in regards to that.
So much to, while it's on like Pelinka and the roster build and all that, it's on Luka physically to age well, because part of what you're talking about, like Lakers might have made a little mini run this year if Luka's hamstring doesn't go. Dallas, their last run with Luka, we all know why part of that split happened. And I think some of that, nobody is arguing was a good trade or executed it in the right way. But, part of that was, I believe Nico Harrison has been made clear, was like kind of betting against Luka's ability to age into his 30s physically well. And it is now on Luka to age well, because the way this team is now built, it needs to be high usage, high minutes, high game totals, deep into the playoffs, so much on him physically. And he's entering his physical prime theoretically, right? How most athletes would. We've seen what LeBron has done, and nobody's saying, hey, have a LeBron type run to your 40s. But if Luka's going to be the all-time great that his talent says he should be, and lead the Lakers to places that they think he can, like, he's just got to stay in great physical condition for, throughout into at least like his late prime.
Andy, you got such a unique seat in the Jonathan Kuminga conversation, because cover the Warriors for obviously a long time, and it's interesting to kind of see. And I'm kind of curious how I want to start this conversation, but he's been one of the bigger topics in the offseason. It's still going on. We're not sure where he's going to end up. I'll just ask you, when he was with the Warriors, can you tell me when Jonathan Kuminga was at his best, what did that look like, versus when Jonathan Kuminga was maybe lost in the rotation and Steve Kerr wasn't going to him as much? Like, what did the best look like and maybe the worst look like version of Jonathan Kuminga?
Yeah, this is like a 5-year saga. I feel you see the movie The Odyssey recently.
Yeah, I just saw it. Yep.
Yeah, that's Kuminga's Warriors career. This we could almost relate all the different, villains in that movie to various points in his career. At his best, Andrew Wiggins, you might remember, this would have been the 23 season. So Kuminga is an NBA champion, by the way, his rookie year. Wins an NBA championship. I remember that was a fact. I told Jimmy Butler that after he got here, because he was kind of starting to learn the Warriors a little bit and the Kuminga thing. And I was like, he has a ring. He's like, what? He was on that team? It's just, I think, sometimes forgotten in that. And was he that big of a factor in the playoffs? Not really, but go back. He started 3 games. He had in that series I was talking about, where I think it was the Maverick series, maybe it was the Grizzlies series. He has an 18-point game and a win, I think, in the West Finals. Anyway.
Damn, as a rookie.
Yeah.
Impressive.
No, entering year 2, it was like, oh, okay, you got something here. And then to my point, when it was at his best was but at times in year 2 and 3. Year 2, Andrew Wiggins, you probably remember his father was ailing. He left the team for 2 months. You go look from the All-Star break to the playoffs, as the Warriors were, trying to roll up and get the 3 seed or get the 6 seed and sneak their way in the playoffs. Wiggins is gone, and Kuminga becomes a 20-point per game, second-year player in the league. Again, playing the role that Steve Kerr and the Warriors often want him, but the Lakers, I'm sure, will want if they get him, which is slashing, dunker spot, Andre Iguodala type stuff, defending multiple positions, rebounding for his size. When he was always been at his best, he's rebounding with energy. Now he will tell you, I have the energy when I get the minutes and I get the responsibility and I get the trust from a coaching staff, which always was yanked back and forth. I mentioned that second season because he has a terrific 2-month run. He is a major reason why they did get the 6th seed. But they get to the playoffs and Andrew Wiggins shows up on their doorstep right before round 1. And veteran coach trusts his veteran player. Andrew Wiggins slides back into the starting lineup. You probably remember their first round series against the Kings, which was high drama, 7 games. They win that series. But Kuminga's minutes just evaporate in the playoffs that year. They go back to Wiggins. Wiggins is playing 38 minutes per game by the end of that series. Into that Lakers series, second round. And I remember the thought was maybe starting Jonathan Kuminga in that series, but Kerr instead goes to JaMychal Green because they wanted some like stretchability. Because Kuminga never necessarily fit with Draymond. That was always kind of an issue, right, with the lack of spacing, especially because they often didn't play spacing centers at the time. They had another name here, Kevon Looney, with spacing issues with Kevon, Draymond, and Kuminga. So again, then Kuminga enters that summer feeling a type of way of like, I helped you. I'm building myself into this piece that should be kind of trusted and relied upon. But the moment that something either goes haywire or somebody needs to be minimized here, I am the guy that's minimized. You would go into year 3 where if you look, I mean, he set a franchise record in dunks that year. I mean, he's like, I think probably 16, 17 points per game type guy. When he was particularly great that year was Draymond Green's suspension saga, something you will probably also remember. Draymond Green had to leave the team for a while. He got indefinitely suspended by Adam Silver.
Right.
Well, that opens up a spot for Jonathan Kuminga. There's literally a quote. Draymond Green comes back later in the year in Utah, and Kuminga's rolling at the time. And it was it was kind of a famed Draymond quote because it's just how he is. But he basically was like, hey, maybe in some ways it was good I got suspended because we have unlocked our number 2 scorer, this monster that we suddenly have, Jonathan Kuminga. And so many times in his career by others, by Steve Kerr, by Draymond, certainly by Joe Lacob, he was platformed as like, he's arrived, he's the next piece. And then often the carpet was ripped out from under him. Now, some people will say it's because you were unwilling at times to play the side role consistently, particularly when a full lineup was there. Again, all of its best moments, his high moments, as you mentioned, were typically when somebody was out. Somebody who didn't fit necessarily better with him, a veteran, was out. But the problem is those veterans would come back. Steve Kerr minimizes his minutes, minimizes his role. He never, adapted well to that. To that point, his end of his 4th season, entering that restricted free agency that was so toxic in so many ways, is that playoffs where in the Houston series, this is at the end of year 4, entering, as a contract year, and like I would say the pouting and like the strain of the relationship is at its highest. He gets DNP'd very controversially in the Houston series because everybody's healthy. Jimmy Butler is now there, which again creates fit issues, blocks him. They don't think Butler, Draymond, and Kuminga fit well. That's what their lineup data says. Who of those 3 are you going to take out of the lineup? And as that's going down, he gets completely DMP'd in the Houston series, like in somewhat of an embarrassing way to him. And then he's, and you're heading towards a restricted free agency where you just don't know where it's going. And then, as you might remember, Steph Curry strains his hamstring in game 1 of the Minnesota series, the second round. Jonathan Kuminga, because there is a lack of talent at other places on the roster that is built to like maximize Steph, but certainly not, hey, Steph's out of here. Like Pat Spencer, Guy Santos go get a bucket against the Minnesota Timberwolves in the second round. Jonathan Kuminga leaps up into their number 1 scorer in the series. I mean, 23 points per game, 55% shooting, starting. Go watch game 3 of that series. He's the best player on the floor in the first half. He's like flying to the corner, blocking Jaden McDaniels shots out of bounds. And you're like, where has this defender been? But it's like, okay, he knows he's starting tonight. He knows he's getting 35 minutes. And like he had an excellent series. Then he heads into a restricted free agency. It goes how it goes. But again, that's always the push and pull. The low moments, the bad moments, oftentimes they're like married to each other. And then this year, I mean, look at the Hawks in the playoffs. While he just got, completely disposed of by the Hawks in a lot of ways, he also at the same time in the playoffs against the Knicks, the eventual champs, in game 2 and 3, was a top 2-3 player on the Hawks. He had 20-point nights. He was guarding Towns. He was guarding several players. He was certainly playing over Zachary Ricochet, the former #1 overall pick. He was closing over Dyson Daniels at times in that series, and he didn't have a clean, easy, great series. Right by the end, him, like everybody on the Hawks, kind of melted down. They lost the last 3. They got blown out in Game 6 at home, but when the stakes have been highest the last few playoffs, like he has risen his game. And you still talk to people in Atlanta that's like, dude, he was not afraid of the moment. He certainly isn't being viewed as part of their core, and they didn't sign him, and that should probably hint something. But also, I do think sometimes his actual on-court resume gets minimized too much by the business side of what has happened in his career.
Is it safe to say, is it about his role or is it more the minutes? Like, I'll give you an example. If he was on the Lakers and he was a starting power forward for the Lakers and he was getting 25 to 30 minutes a night, is he going to just give you, because of his energy and his athleticism, what you need? Or is it, no, I also need the ball? Because it sounds like a lot of what you're saying here, it had more to do with he was always the odd man out, and it had maybe in key situations, whatever the case is, Wiggins comes back, Jimmy Butler's on the team, whatever the case is, he's the odd man out, so he's just getting less minutes. Is it more about just being on the floor, or is it a role when he's on the floor?
I think that having the ball in his hands does matter a lot, but I also think like being named the starting power forward of the Los Angeles Lakers would like ease so much of his concerns. I would say that part of the issue over the last few years is like he's always been playing for his future. It's all, it was playing for an extension, then it was playing for, right before restricted free agency. The way this contract was set up, it was, like he's kind of been in a contract year the last few years. Atlanta, he was kind of thrust onto. So I think there is a frantic nature to the way of like when he does get the minutes, it's like, okay, I got to show what I can do. Certainly to your point, there is an idea in his mind of what he can be as a, ball control creator. Not that it's got to be like it should be him and Luka 1A 1B. It wouldn't necessarily be that, but there would certainly be possessions where he would want to get to his mid-range jumper and probably would frustrate coaches and fans if he's having an inefficient night. But it's like he just like gets the ball and it's kind of go time for him because he's got to get his shot off, because he did he does that plenty. He did it in Atlanta at times. So there is some of that. But within that, he has learned, particularly within his Warriors tenure, of how to like do a lot of winning stuff. I mean, if you look at some of those Knicks, those 2 Knicks playoff wins, I mean, he was doing a lot of like good team defensive stuff. When they had the final defensive stand in one of the Knicks wins, he had this like great help side moment, and then like credited Draymond post game for like so I think there are some winning qualities within there, but certainly there is an ambition that has driven a lot of the last few years of his career. And I do think like is still in the back of his mind of what he believes he could be in the NBA if given an opportunity that he not, to his mind, has not necessarily been given. But look, regardless, like he's not going to step into a situation next year where he is a 2 or 3 type offensive option on a team. You got to almost earn your way to that by doing the role type stuff first, which at times he struggled with. But I do think if a team would anoint him starting power forward of the Los Angeles Lakers, doesn't matter if you struggle a little bit, you're getting 25, 30 minutes. I do think that would probably ease some stuff, particularly if he was on a multi-year contract. But who knows? I mean, it's been quite a saga for him.
So what do you think is what's the market for him? Like, as we sit here today, do you think he's going to get what he's looking for, or is there this? I had Bobby Marks on the show about a week and a half ago or so. And Bobby, when I said, how do you like the actual fit with the Lakers? He's like, I love the fit. Right now, how he gets here and how he can obviously potentially become a Laker and everything that I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think it's safe to say what you think he's looking for. I think he actually would get with the Lakers. Like I'm with you in I don't know if he's going to play his role, the exact role they're going to ask him to play, but I think there's not just a spot here, but there's definitely a starter spot. Like, I think he can accomplish what he wants, but in order for him to be a Laker, what do you think in his head is his market value, and what do you think the actual market value is where it is realistic or it's not?
Yeah, I mean, his agent Aaron Turner has no problem kind of dragging negotiations out to try to potentially squeeze or figure out, what other opportunities could potentially pop up where an extra dollar might be. It's a very challenging market clearly for him this summer again, just like last summer. It's unrestricted, which is different, but it's clear he would, to get any type of near to the type of money that they would want, would need Atlanta's involvement in a sign and trade. But Atlanta has kind of backed themselves into their own roster at point. They're aproned. They did the Lou Dort trade where they took on,
I think they have 17 players on their roster too.
Yeah, it's a roster crunch. So they would really it seems to me Atlanta's fine being business is done for the summer, wipe our hands. Now, if they are incentivized with a pick, an asset, obviously they're not going to not pick up the phone, but I just think it creates an environment where there's not a level of desperation or even motivation on the Atlanta side on a sign and trade, which suppresses his market. And I think the Lakers are sitting there still as the hungriest suitor, but also knowing that at this point there's not necessarily a reason to throttle forward and blow out the rest of your assets and try to get him every last dollar he wants. But at some point he's got to have a team. I'd probably still think the Lakers are at the forefront of that conversation. Now I do wonder length of a deal and what's the ideal structure, because you could argue, sure, maybe even take a little bit less early on a deal if you're him and you believe in yourself the way Jonathan Kuminga and the people around Jonathan Kuminga believe in what he still can be long term, and he's still 23 years old. Then maybe you take a short-term deal, you try to have your explosion season and get back into the market next year, but then again that goes against what I was talking about earlier of a guy who probably wants to feel a little bit settled at some point, not just be a bounce around guy that every single summer has negotiations dragging deep in and doesn't know what team he's going to be on. So it's a balance. But to your point, and this is what I dealt with the Warriors all last summer, eventually September's going to roll along. Eventually October's going to roll along. Eventually you have to make a decision on a contract and then get into camp and start practice and play games. So, again, I do think Cleveland's still sniffing around, and maybe the Clippers are on the fringe. Milwaukee, I think Peyton Watson is a domino that matters in a lot of this. I wonder about the resolution of Kawhi and how that impacts a lot of guys still out there. But I would say I think the Lakers are still from what I gather, the Lakers are still at the forefront of the conversation with Kuminga.
Final one. I'll ask the same one I asked with Bobby. If he ended up with the Lakers, how do you think he would, in his own role, what he brings to the table? You could kind of tell, you were critical of just what the Lakers look like. They took a lot of chances. You think he could thrive with the Lakers?
Well, I think he provides a lot of what they're missing. I think that's part of the lure from what I've gathered, to him to go there is they need some athleticism on the wing, power forward slot. He to me most naturally now is an NBA power forward. They have spacing and Luka and shooting that I think would help him thrive a little bit more offensively, particularly if Kessler actually does get a threatening 3-point shot. A stretch five has always really helped him. So I think there's a lot of. He would help the Lakers in a lot of ways, particularly a locked-in version of him. And the other thing I would say, unlike other young players, and the Hawks would say this, when they got him in the playoffs and his lack of fear going into Madison Square Garden, at times maybe too much, at times wanting to score and do too much, but it wasn't because he was shying away from the playoff moment. He rose over a lot of their younger guys in the playoff moment, partly because he was on a championship Warriors team. He was in the gauntlet of that brand and those big playoff moments. And he's seen a lot in his career. And despite his age, I think that the Lakers of it all wouldn't scare him. Again, you still want to be okay, maybe scare you out of that 16-foot jumper, maybe pass the ball over here. But generally, yeah, I think considering the limited tools the Lakers have and the talent level I do still believe Kuminga has. And I think that an on-court track record of still helping in big moments for big teams when used right, and like I'm talking about him using himself right also. Yeah, like to me it's a no-brainer upgrade for what they currently have.
I hope it happens. I think it's going to be interesting, but it's such a great vantage point of the way you broke down kind of his career with the Warriors, and times where you felt like he was the man and other times where he's not getting opportunities. Like, kind of fascinating to see. And like you just said, he's only 23. I feel like he has this history already in the NBA. I feel like he's 27 or 28, but to be so young and still obviously got his entire career in front of him, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious where he goes. And opening night, as we learned today, Warriors-Lakers. It would add a little bit of juice to that matchup.
Maybe Adam Silver knows something we don't know. Anthony, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate you coming on the show and your insight and everything else. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. That is Anthony Slater right there. Great stuff from him. No surprise here, no shock. Does a phenomenal job, obviously, covering the NBA. He's been doing it for a number of years, was with The Athletic for a number of years, obviously now with ESPN. So interesting, good perspective. I really, really like the perspective of, the guy would come through, and when he had opportunities, when it felt like, the team was bought in on him and they believed in him, that he would come through. And the playoff moments that he's talking about, and I think the example of walking into the Madison Square Garden and the Atlanta Hawks didn't intimidate him. I've said this from the beginning, and I'll say it again. I want to see Kuminga on the Lakers, and if it drags out and it's not ideal and people get annoyed that it's taking this long and people don't like the way maybe he's approaching it, I'd rather have him than not have him. So if we got to October 1st and he made a decision on the day training camp starts, then I don't care. Again, I'd rather have him than not. And I always go back to the same thing that I've said in the past. It's he's not a luxury. He's a necessity. And I just don't think the Lakers are in a position here where they can say, well, we're fine. Yeah, we don't need Jonathan Kuminga. No, they need Jonathan Kuminga. Whether it happens or it doesn't, we'll see. But that was great stuff. I think that was just a phenomenal perspective from obviously from Anthony Slater, and really appreciate him breaking some of that stuff down. Okay, let's take a look at some of the comments. I know we got probably a lot of comments that want to chime in on that conversation, and I don't know if that conversation makes people feel more, if they feel better about wanting to land, they're more encouraged to try to go get Jonathan Kuminga, or less encouraged. But for me, I think it actually makes me more encouraged. Before we do so, quick shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. Just a great partner, a great sponsor of the show and the channel. I don't really need to say too much about Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm, because most people who've been on this channel know about our relationship here. But one of the best in the business. He can help anybody in the state of California. If anybody needs an injury attorney, go to wallacewins.com/Sliwa, or send me an email. I'll make a personal introduction to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. He'll take care of you. He's phenomenal. He's a big Laker fan, and he's a big supporter of the channel. And shout out to a number of our listeners that have reached out to me directly or have reached out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. He can help you. I hope you never need him, but if you do, you got the one of the best in the business. wallacewins.com/Sliwa. Okay, let's take a look at some of these comments here. There was a few that I got to go back to, but just to go back to Steve's initial comment here. Steve, thank you for the super. How would the Lakers ceiling raise by adding Jonathan Kuminga? Thanks again for the great content. I will say this. I will say that, to go back to what I just said, and hopefully that helped with Anthony, it raises their ceiling. It does. And again, if his issue with the Golden State Warriors was he didn't have consistent PT and really didn't have a consistent role, I don't think that would be a problem for the Lakers. Now, could he get into the doghouse a little bit with JJ Redick? Could there be some times where the Lakers are asking him to play a specific role, and could that be a little bit of a headache? And maybe he's thinking to himself, no, I got to play a bigger role. Absolutely, that can happen. And things can happen with the Lakers. Either there are times where playing for the Lakers can help you with a future contract. It can hurt you. You could be Malik Monk, and, end up getting a deal with the Sacramento Kings and a lucrative deal at that, you could be DeAndre Ayton. And you might be kind of walking around the league here, and people are wondering whether you really got a future as a 2-year or a 3-year commitment. All right, let's get some more of these comments here. But I'll go back to it. I 100% genuinely believe Jonathan Kuminga would help the Lakers. And how he gets here and how long it takes for him to get here, I'd rather have him than not. Thank you here for the super here. Let's get a couple more. Shout out here. Thank you for the super as well. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. Let me get another comment in here. So Reaves and Luka have to defend 2 of Maxey, Edgecombe, Brown, and LeBron on Christmas. Guys, I want to make sure we're all on the same page in this. And because I think, yesterday I was doing this with Trevor Lane as well. The team with Quentin Grimes, with Matisse Thybulle, with, Walker Kessler, it's obviously going to be a collective effort to play defense. And if there's one thing, and, Anthony Slater, I'll give him credit on this, and kind of the similar theme here in regards to some of these Laker players as far as what to expect from them and Walker Kessler specifically, that did the Lakers give up too much? Yeah, I think it's safe to say there's going to be a lot of players on this team that are going to have to prove their value and their worth. So whether that's Quentin Grimes, whether that's Mamu, whether that's Colin Sexton, clearly the Lakers, if, stuff is going to happen, it's not going to happen individually. It's not going to happen. It's going to have to be collective on the defensive side. And yes, there are going to be times where Austin Reaves, no, they're not going to ask Luka Dončić to go guard Tyrese Maxey. Neither are they going to ask Austin Reaves to go guard Tyrese Maxey. But one of those guys are probably going to have to guard Edgecombe. Of course, you're looking at what LeBron or what Jaylen Brown can do and just what a threat that he is. So, yeah, there's going to be some headaches, certainly for the Lakers on some of these defensive side of things. So, shout out here. Thank you again for some of the supers here. I appreciate that. Let's see what else we have. I want to just see a couple of these other comments here. I'm over the Kuminga talk. Obviously, he's just milking it. Hell yeah, we don't have someone athletic as Kuminga. Imagine the lobs from him to Luka. I'll kind of continue to go on this. Again, this is just a personal opinion. I don't care how it gets done. I just want to see it get done. The fact that they are waiting on Kuminga lets you know they don't believe in themselves. No, I just think that they know there's holes on their roster that they, certainly need to address. Let's see what we got here. Raises the ceiling. If he's brought in, it's DeAndre Ayton all over again. Just get Clay. There's a difference, I think, on the Ayton thing, but I see the similarities there. I mean, hell, I think I mentioned one of the similarities there as well. Let me see here. Something that Eric's put in here. Jonathan Kuminga had 17 points, 8 rebounds on 5 of 11 field goals in 22 minutes in Game 4 versus Luka and the Mavs in the 2022 Western Conference Finals. Warriors lost that game. That's right. So he was mentioning a specific moment there, playoff-wise. All right, that's a lot. That's a lot, and it's a phenomenal conversation in regards to the Kuminga front. And I think we'll have to obviously wait and see how things end up going. And listen, it sounds like this is going to be dragged out. I wouldn't be surprised we're sitting here a month from now, and I think what people are not also understanding, maybe this Kawhi thing is also stopping a lot of these moves from happening. Maybe Jonathan Kuminga has been told by other teams, pause, wait, let's see what happens here. There could be a trickle effect that happens on the Kawhi stuff, and we'll have to wait and see here. Okay, the other thing, and I think we talked a little bit about it, so I don't need to play the Zach Lowe thing, to be honest with you. I think the Lakers trap thing, we had that conversation with Anthony Slater, so we really don't have to do too much from that perspective as well. We're closing in on an hour anyways, and there are some NBA stories that I want to get into as well, so I think we'll just kind of jump to the NBA piece of things. The only thing that I will say, I think a little bit on that conversation of who's got the most pressure on this Lakers team. There was part of that Zach Lowe conversation is how much pressure is going to be on Walker Kessler. I'll pump the brakes here. I think there's plenty of pressure on a lot of guys here. I mean, I think of Austin Reaves and trying to play up to that contract. I think of Rob Pelinka, which Anthony Slater mentioned as well, could be playing for his job or could be managing for his job, and obviously president of basketball operations. a lot of pressure around the Lakers. I don't think it's all on one guy, and I don't think it's all on Walker Kessler. I'll tell you guys that. All right, let's take a look at a couple of the NBA stories, and then we're going to call it a Tuesday here. I appreciate you guys being a part of the show, as always, like I mentioned. Let's see what we got here. A couple stories around the NBA. You know, I saw this, and it is what it is, but I saw the Michael Thompson, of course, somebody I used to work with, used to do the Lakers pregame show with. Michael Thompson, I did see on Twitter, basically said he's trying to recruit his son Klay to the Lakers. He was replying to a fan. I saw something as well. Klay Thompson posted a screenshot. Eric, if you want to put that up and we could look at it at the same time. Klay Thompson, there's obviously been some conversation about Klay. For me, I've given you guys my opinion on that. I do think it would kind of break the mold of what the Lakers have been doing all offseason. I'm not completely against it, but again, I'll just say that, you know, there's a piece of this. They went younger. They got more athletic. Klay Thompson's 36 years old. Maybe you can get him in a buyout. Doesn't sound like Dallas wants to buy him out because there is some interest from other teams. Do I think he can help the Lakers? I think he can help the Lakers, but mostly in other ways, not just, you know, obviously on the court, because I don't know what he's got left on the court. I know he was one of the baddest players to ever, you know, obviously at his position, that run that he had with the Golden State Warriors, 4 NBA championships. Him and Steph were unbelievable. Are those days behind him? Probably. Klay Thompson posts a screenshot NBA 2K video game with him in a Lakers uniform with Magic Johnson and says, "This is what my dreams look like on a consistent basis." So probably, you know, trying to figure out his way of how to get to the Los Angeles Lakers. Knows that Luka's there, knows that he can definitely help spread the floor, and one of the baddest shooters to ever play the game or to ever be in the game. Okay, I also saw this. I don't know what the hell it means. LeBron, I don't know what the hell this is. It's going to come with the territory, because anytime LeBron says something, it's going to make news. LeBron posted on his Instagram story where he reposted a quote: "Normalize removing yourself from anywhere you feel weird vibes, negative energy, or sneaky-ish." People are going to just automatically jump. Is he talking about the Lakers? I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I just know that whatever LeBron does, it obviously catches attention. I'm sure it caught a lot of attention from other people as well. I'll leave it alone. I'm not going to pay too much attention to it. I know Lakers and the Sixers are playing each other on Christmas Day, which is going to be fun. Jake Fisher reports that Kawhi Leonard believes the Raptors-Clippers trade will still happen. Quote, "Kawhi Leonard is working under the belief the NBA's ongoing investigation will conclude before the start of training camp," sources say, "and that the 7-time All-Star remains on course to join the Toronto Raptors." So, see what happens on that front. Obviously, I think the rest of the NBA, a lot of people in the NBA are just all hoping this thing works itself out. So hopefully sooner than later. Last couple of comments we're going to call today. I'm back on, just so people know. Let's see what we got here. Just so people know, we're going to do a show on Tuesday, our regular time, 8 a.m. Let me find here. Our guest is going to be Rob Chapulu. He's coming up on the show on Thursday. He's part of Silver Screen and Roll, has put out a lot of great stuff on Silver Screen and Roll, and is doing a phenomenal job covering the NBA, covering the Lakers. He's going to join the show on Thursday, so I'm looking forward to having him on. That's going to be the guest coming up on Thursday. Regular time, 8 a.m. All right. Thank you for a little bit of love here. Kuminga isn't the answer to our problems. However, it'll be nice if we had him rather than not have him. Obviously, I think that's what it comes down to for me. And I actually think he would solve some problems for the Lakers, and we'll see if they're able to make it happen. All right, everybody, that's all we got for today. Shout out to Anthony Slater for coming on the show. Thank you to Eric Scolar for handling things in the background. And shout out to Brad Wallace and the Wallace Firm. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Tuesday. Back on Thursday, another live show starting at 8 a.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you in a couple days.